Hello, I'm Sam Gregory. I'm a head and neck cancer speech and language therapist, and I work at Torbay Hospital in South Devon. And I'm going to talk to you about our trip to Boston in collaboration with the Swallows Head and Neck Cancer Support Group. This is something I never thought I'd ever do in my whole career, and I've been very fortunate. I only came back this week, so I'm a tiny bit jet lagged, but hopefully I can share with you what we've been up to. So, I just want to tell you about our team. So I'm the clinical lead for head and neck cancer and speech and language therapy. And I'm really privileged to work with an amazing team of doctors, oncologists, surgeons, coordinators. And I'm part of what we would call our cancer support team. So this is our team. So top left, we've got Sarah. She's another speech and language therapist. We've got Debs, who's our dietitian, and we have Amy and Fahida, who are clinical nurse specialists. And any patient that's diagnosed with head and neck cancer have us as their cheerleaders, we would say, from diagnosis to discharge. So the 5 years that the patients are in our service until they're discharged, we look after them. As a speech and language therapist, it's my role to support people with their swallowing, talking, and just generally their emotional well-being as best we can as a team. Um, when I started my role in Torbay 5 years ago, the patients I know, they had their support team, they had their doctors, they had their friends, their families, but there wasn't any local support groups that they could join to meet other people that had had head and neck cancer, or their caregivers that have gone through this very long and traumatic process. So when we started, I heard about the Swallows Head and Neck Cancer Support Group, and I was really lucky to meet Chris and Sharon. Chris and Sharon are the directors of the Swallows Head and Neck Cancer Support Group. And the reason we have this group is Chris had a head and neck cancer himself. He had a tonsil cancer in 2011, and he had surgery and he had chemoradiotherapy. He was unable to eat and drink for at least a couple of years. He was dependent on a peg tube, and the treatment that he had was brutal. Chris will readily admit that. He had his cancer support team, he had his doctors, he had his family, but he didn't have anybody that had gone through what he had gone through. Um, and so what Chris decided to do was put together the Swallows, and it's just grown from there. He initially started with a local head and neck support group in Blackpool, and as his charity has grown, the support groups are now international. They've got groups in Australia, in South Africa, in Spain, and we now have one in Torbay. There's quite a few in the UK as well. The amazing thing about the Swallows is as clinicians, we want to support our patients as best we can, but what Chris does is he takes the support group and sets it up for you, actually. So it was our job to identify patient leaders. So we wrote to all our patients, asked them if they were interested in supporting a local patient and caregiver support group. And some wonderful people came forward. We introduced them to Chris. Chris helped them find the venue. Chris organised, he pays for the venue. He organised all the mail shop, and we launched our meeting this year, which was fantastic. So the wonderful thing about the Swallows meetings is they happen every second Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. So all over the UK, every single meeting will meet at the same time. We did want to launch our local meeting in 2020, but as we know, everything shut down because of COVID and went online. So Chris took the Swallows meetings online, and we took our meetings online, but we waited for patient-facing meetings to come back. So we were really lucky having the support of all of the trust. We had Liz Davenport visit our launch night. and we had other directors come, we had members of our cancer support team, but actually more importantly, we had patients and their caregivers, and we filled the room. So this is the Community Hall of Kings Tainton Community Centre. Um, and there were people lining up out the door. It was wonderful. Chris did a short presentation about what the Swallows charity do, and we had an international speaker from Boston. We had Arthur Laurentano, who is a surgeon at Lowell General in Boston. And it was at that meeting actually that it was announced that one of my colleagues and I would be going to Boston. So it was a bit of a shock, but a wonderful one. But the whole point of these meetings is I've put a couple of quotes on there from what our patients would say to us is, no one will know what you're going through better than someone who's already been there. Um, and one of the unique things that the Swallows charity provide is a 24-hour helpline, which is only answered by Sharon and Chris. So if you're a patient, Chris will talk to you, and if you're a caregiver, Sharon will talk to you. They carry the mobile with them 24 hours a day, all year long, and they even took calls while we were in Boston. And quite a lot of our patients say to us, the Swallows help them when they needed to talk in the middle of the night, and that's such a unique service to have. They don't give medical advice. They direct the patients to their clinicians if there's anything related to medical advice, but they just listen and say, yeah, I've been there. I remember what it was like. The treatment is hard, and to lose your ability to talk and communicate and eat and drink is and really for nobody to see it happening as well, because a lot of our treatment happens on the inside, is so debilitating for our patients. So this charity is just absolutely amazing. So we met, so that's Fahida there, and myself and Sharon and Chris. Um, we went along, something else that Swallows do is international conferences. So we went to a conference in Brighton in 2019, and that's actually where we met Arthur. He's flown over to every international conference that's happened in person, and he has never missed an online patient and caregiver meeting. He is absolutely amazing. And the aim was for us to go to Boston to share what we do, to share our good practice, to learn from their good practice, to promote the Swallows charity, and to launch a group there. They don't have a patient-led group in Lowell. Something also to mention is Chris and Sharon have been awarded the Queen's Award for voluntary services. So it's an absolutely amazing charity. So we got to Boston. um, And we, in this picture, you've got myself and Fahida. In the middle, that's Kylie. She's a dietitian, and she's actually the head and neck cancer navigator. Next to Kylie, you have Elisa, and she's the cancer centre director, and then also Chris. We were absolutely sport rotten for the whole week. We spent 5 days with the team. We followed them around all week and met patients. We discussed the differences between the NHS and private healthcare, which I won't go into. But the big thing to say is any patient receiving cancer care for head and neck cancer at this cancer centre, if they do not have insurance, they still get cancer treatment. There are charities that are there to support our patients or their patients. And it's just amazing that they can access this care. So the wonderful thing about this time we had is we got to meet other professionals while we were there. So they set us up in the conference room. I met this speech therapist and had a great time. We met Arthur and worked with Arthur, and Kylie in the top right there. She is basically Fahida's counterpart. So Fahida is our clinical nurse specialist who is our patient's key worker. So anybody going through this treatment, Fahida and Amy are their go-to. They coordinate appointments, they liaise with the medical team, they signpost patients to different services, and that's exactly what Kylie does. But she didn't do it until Arthur met Fahida back in 2019 and took the model of the key worker to his cancer centre and created a job, and that's the job that Kylie does. So she's absolutely fantastic. She run around. I can't imagine how she holds everything in her head, but she knows every single patient, just like actually our nurses do. Coordinates their appointments and is a dietitian as well. So she is able to do that role. Not only were we able to see these wonderful professionals in person, but we also were able to arrange a video call between our dietitian, Debs, and Kylie, and it was lovely listening to them chat about what they do. So, being a speech therapist, obviously, I'm going to have to talk about something to do with speech and language therapy. So, this is me with the speech therapist there, or speech language pathologist. And actually, I was able to share some of our best practice. So, in the UK, we are using a device. Some patients that have difficulties with tongue and throat strength after their treatment, we have this device that we purchase through charitable funds that rehabilitates tongue strength using a little air-filled bulb that you squeeze. And it's based on exercise science. We set them up with a program. They do it for 6 weeks. We see them every week to modify that program, and we have really good outcomes with patients swallowing rehab. So I was able to share this with them. That's something that they don't have, but hopefully they will. We had a brilliant tour of the hospital, and we got to meet some of the team that work in radiology. So for some of our head and neck cancer patients, they would have radiotherapy. As you can see in the top right-hand corner, our patients have to be in the same position every day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. And that is what they have to have that mask fitted, they have to be secured to the bed, and the treatment is given so it's accurate. And we met with a patient who was 5 years following his treatment, and I can't imagine um, lying on that table being secured to that bed 5 days a week. And when he met his radiology team, he said, when he had his mask made, this was a lovely quote. He held my hand and said, "This is going to be hard. We're going to get you through this." And he felt like he was terrified, but they were validating his terror. And I thought that's a really lovely way to put it, actually, at how supportive those teams are. And it's exactly the same here in the UK, which is just wonderful. This is some technology that they're using in the US, and they do have it in the UK. We don't have it in Torbay. It's called Thor laser therapy, which uses I've written it down so I don't get it wrong. Photobiomodulation therapy for oral mucositis. So it uses a laser LED to reduce the severity of the ulcerations that can form in your mouth when you're having head and neck cancer treatment. It can reduce inflammation and aids healing and reduces free radicals. So this gentleman was on immunotherapy, and he had quite severe mucositis, so ulcers in his mouth, and his mouth opening was really restricted. And this treatment, he was coming in 3 times a week for, felt it was the only way he could get through the treatment. um, which this is amazing technology, which I think in the UK we're still researching, but I think there's a future for it, which we will, and that's the device there, we'll discuss with our oncologists. We also got to meet patients. It was wonderful. We went up to the chemo unit. We met patients in clinics and discussed different ways that we support them, shared ideas, and we also got to interview this wonderful gentleman who just said, the thing that I took away from his, he said, think about the edges of the system. You've got your treatment, you've got your team, but think about what's on the periphery. Think about the patient outside that hospital. And I think that's why these support groups are so important. And he thought that a support group would be something he would definitely go to, if it was to be put together. Um, and he said it's going to be different when you're done. Of course it is, but I think these support groups help patients and their caregivers lifelong. We say goodbye to them at 5 years, which is great because they've been discharged from their cancer follow-up, but then they've got to live their life, and some people really need that support, and that's what the Swallows charity provide. Um, I know we're pushed for time, so I just popped a little picture on there as well, because Arthur was very kindly took us into the theatre for the day as well. So that was absolutely amazing. We saw some really amazing surgeries, and this again, the team were just wonderful. We got to meet the patients before and afterwards. Um, so what I want to say is the Swallows also do their international conferences. So this year their conference is back in person and it's in Sunderland. It's 2 days and it's free. It's free to healthcare professionals, patients, caregivers. It's funded by different companies, so there's lots of different stands for patients to and healthcare professionals to talk to. Really, really, really good educational event. So I'd love it if you could share that. It's also going to be online. So if you went on the Swallows website, you can link into the online conference, and it's going to be recorded on YouTube. And even more exciting is it's coming to Torbay next year. So everybody in the Southwest, please promote the Swallows charities. Find out if you have a local Swallows head and neck cancer support group. Signpost your patients, their caregivers to these groups. Anyone in Torbay who knows of anybody, please let them know when our group is. And come to the conference next year. You know, it's going to be an amazing event, and it's free. And it's very rare that we get educational conferences for free. Um, so I would love to see you there or online. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so